Time for a June update here on the farm. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here on a very early June morning. In fact, it is June 20th, 2021. So we have a lot of you guys that are following us along and watching us put this farm together from scratch. And obviously the big question for everyone, knowing that we're here in Arizona in the desert, is how does everything survive the heat? So as opposed to a long overview, we want to kind of just give you some highlights of some of the areas that would probably be the biggest questions when it comes to summertime fruit trees and plants here in the desert in Arizona. So let's go ahead and start with it right up here with our evergreens on the farm. So you got a little bit of an idea of some of the guava, the loquat. We'll look at the citrus here in just a moment, but I wanted to focus on the loquat. We had talked a lot about the fact that the first summer for a loquat tree is really its critical time, and that's why that fall planting is so important. So I wanted to get a close-up shot of this particular loquat for you here because these are highly grafted trees, which made us a little concerned only because we have this long trunk in the sunshine. And then of course the loquats going into this time period. Now this last week in June, we hit record temps. We were 114, 115 out here in Whitman, near 120 in the city. So very, very hot and very, very dry, which is always a challenge for loquats. But as you'll see, this has a lot of new growth on it. So now let's go down and take a look at a couple of these citrus trees before we slide around the corner. These are almost all newly planted here in the last couple months, and we have had some torrential wind come through and just really blast these newly planted trees and knock a lot of the original leaves off. However, as you can see, and what you've hopefully seen in some of that footage, is all the new growth that's still pushing out here in June in Arizona. So even these new plantings, while I'm still concerned about these because of the lack of foliage, to see this new growth is definitely encouraging. And this is probably the one that's about the worst for the wear. One of the new challenges we've had is sheep. We've have a neighbor that allows the sheep to come out and wander a bit, and we've had them come onto the farm and start munching on things. You can see the whole front half of this everbearing mulberry was pretty much taken out by them. Now, they can only reach up so high, so they're kind of cleaned out the bottom here. We know these trees grow very, very aggressively all summer long, so we're not too concerned about it. But one of the things we are doing so that we can make a few more of these trees just in case is air layering. So you'll see a couple of different air layers that we're working on with these branches here. We've got videos that show how we do that, but we're definitely starting with our mulberries here during the growing season, and so far these branches look just fine. One thing you will see as far as yellowing leaves, you'll see that throughout on this tree here. Very common when trees are under stress, and this last week has been very stressful for all of our trees, is they will start to do some of this. Now, as long as you're still seeing new growth in green tips, especially as on the outward and new growth on the tree, you're just fine. But the air layering on these everbearing mulberries is a good sign for the future. One of the things we do as best we can is take care of the wildlife here on the farm, and bees are definitely one that we want in abundance. You can see these guys getting a drink this morning. Now we put rocks inside there so that they can, as you see, climb up on top of it and still get a drink of water. Got these little guys going for a swim, but they'll be able to get right back out, which is totally necessary. So see if we can get a close-up on this one. You guys can hear these guys being happy in the morning here. So in here with our chickens now, you can see they're molting, so they're a little rough around the edges, but they want to see what I'm doing. But we do have their chicken swimming pools down because of the heat, and they're doing just fine here in this hot, hot weather that we're experiencing. Summertime is the dormant period for the pasture. As you can see, we have areas here that are growing, and this is all alfalfa. And for the most part, the grass is dormant. What we do is we continue to water. Obviously, that's what's keeping these alive that are going to flower now. And the goal is to make sure that the roots for all of the grass remains alive. We have some perennial grasses in here. We want to keep that root material alive. That'll help us when we overseed in the fall to have this come back really, really strong. And you can see the chickens are very interested as to why I'm sitting here in this pile of green, and they want to partake. This here is our little test garden of sunflowers and cowpeas. You can see they're doing really well. We planted these, I don't know, I think it was about five weeks ago or so. But they're doing well. They're starting to put on the flower heads, and the peas down here in the shade of these sunflowers look fantastic as well. So hopefully if these molting girls will let me, we'll get some good shots of this for you guys. This is our western orchard here where we have all of our stone fruit. You can see, I'm pretty sure I've got some video footage of this tree when we were planting it. All it was just a stick that was just over a year ago, believe it or not, and pruned down nice and heavy this winter, and you can see it's doing fantastic. And you'll see all of the peach trees in here leading back into the stone fruit is looking really good here in the middle of summer. Just amazing. This is one of the areas that we're very excited about. This is our sorghum Sudan grass, and we planted this along with some cowpeas and also some sunflowers. The cowpeas and the sunflowers were completely eaten by quail, but the sorghum, you can see, is doing fantastic. I mean, much better than we thought it was going to. Starting to grow really well in most of the areas in here. Got a few little patches here and there, but I just want to give you guys a shot of this because it just sounds really amazing in here in the morning with this breeze. What you're seeing behind me here are essentially newly planted apple trees. We planted these in the fall. We got them from Reed at RSI Growers, and you can see they're doing fantastic. We cut these back to just single whips during the wintertime, and you can see just how much growth we're getting on these trees. Now, the first several trees in here are summer apple varieties, Golden Dorset, Anna, and Tropic Sweet. We also have a couple of trees we're testing that are fall varieties and some pears, but wanted to give you a few shots of some of these Golden Dorset and Anna apple trees. This is one of our Waddell pears. We get these again from Reed at RSI Growers. You can see tree looks fantastic here in the middle of June. We did remove the cage. We're using basically just a trunk protector now. We are growing these in a central leader, so we are gonna let it continue to grow nice and tall. So we do have it staked on either side just to make sure that the western winds that come in from this direction don't knock this tree to the ground. But you can see this tree at about 1.5 years in the ground is looking really good, and it's probably about 8 feet tall or so. This is one of our newly planted jujube trees. A lot of brand new growth pushing out here. One thing about jujubes is they are constantly setting fruit. They're ripe in the fall, but we obviously remove the fruit off of here all the time. There's a jujube there. We won't let these trees fruit the first year in the ground. We want them to concentrate on root growth and root development for the long-term health and survival of the tree. So these guys come off and turn into compost. As we slide to the back of the eastern orchard, you'll see we have our fig trees here, heavy with figs and several different varieties in here. But what I really want to show you is one that we haven't uncaged yet, but we're gonna need to do it soon. This is a Violet de Bardot fig. We actually got this as a cutting from one of our viewers, Victoria. You can see how well this is doing out here, so thank you. And the tree is pushing out of this cage that we have it in. Now, these are kind of known for being slow growers, but that's not what's happening. This was a stick this tall with a couple of small branches when we planted in the fall, and you can see just how well it's doing here in less than a year. So we will continue to cage this tree for at least another month or so. It's wanting to push out, but we do have rabbits that will come back here and start gnawing on the leaves. Last thing I want to do is lose this beautiful Violet de Bardot fig tree. So it's caged for now, but it sure wants to get out. You can see the Shangri-Las are doing fantastic. Typically this time of year, they start to show some stress. We're seeing a little bit of that in some of the growth, but still seeing some new growth, which is fantastic. And then of course, the blackberries. I want to show you this variety of blackberry that we weren't sure about testing here in, of course, full sun. This is our Colombian thornless giant, and it is doing really well. In fact, it has a cane that's basically starting to push down into the ground, and we don't mind that at all. It should root out there well and continue to go. We did actually get 2 ripe fruit off of this. They were pretty large and they did taste really good, but it's nice to see another variety that's doing really good because of course we know the Primark does well and the Triple Crown does well, and now this Colombian thornless, that may be another one to add to the list. So I'm here next to our contorted mulberries, which are doing incredible, lots of new growth, and really excited to see all of the green here on the farm. But here in the middle of June, record temperatures, and we're surrounded by green. So just want to thank you guys for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you as a subscriber. A lot of things we cover here as far as turning this raw desert land into a green desert oasis. We would love to have you here. Definitely share the content if you know anybody that would be interested in something like this. And any questions or comments, we love interacting with you guys, as you know. Please leave those down in the comment section below. Last thing is our Amazon shop. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link down below, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.